brief introduction about linked list, and we will discuss why do we need linked list and why do we not use arrays. Uh, why do we not use arrays? This is a very important question because arrays are very easy to use and very efficient when we access uh, any value or at any index. We can access any value in the array just giving the index of that value, so it's very easy to access. But the question is, why do we not use arrays and why we go for linked list? The first problem with array is that it allocates consecutive memory. When we initialize an array, we try to allocate memory at a consecutive spaces. Like if you declare an array of size 5, here it has 5 cells, 2, 3, 4 and 5. This memory is allocated in a consecutive block, and so it's a problem because sometimes we may not have memory available as a consecutive block. And you can have the analogy of this memory allocation with the example, like if you go to a cinema or some other theater or some other hall and you want to allocate the seats, and you put a precondition that all the seats should be side by side, or another way, in other words, you want to allocate all the seats as a consecutive block. That may create sometime a problem because that may be not available. So this is one problem with array. The other problem is that it is not flexible. You have to allocate in advance. Whenever you declare an array, you have to give it size. That size may be given in advance as a constant value, or that size may be determined later from the user input, but anyhow you have to allocate the size in advance. And what is the problem with that? The problem is that suppose you have allocated this much size, it has 5 cells, but you do not use, but you use only 3 cells, like you put value here, here and here, and these 2 cells are not used, so memory is wasted. And other thing is, sometime you allocate a memory of this much array, but at the later stage you come to know that you need more memory. So in that case you have the limitation because you cannot increase the size of array at a later stage. So these are some limitations with arrays, and linked list removes all these limitations. The mechanism of linked list is that it allocates memory on heap, memory allocation on heap, and at a time we allocate only one cell. Like say this is our RAM, and you create an object here, and then you create an object here, and then here, wherever you find a space. So, and whenever you find a space, and whenever there is a requirement. So there are two important features of array. Whenever you create the object, number one, wherever you find the space in the memory, and whenever you need it. as late as possible. So in a linked list, you do not need to allocate the object in advance. You only create one object at a time, and it's only created when it's really needed, otherwise it's not created. And so whenever you create an object, you link it with already other created objects. Like these are four objects and you linked all these objects. Like this object knows the address of this object, and this object knows the address of this object, and this object knows the address of this object. So this way you connect all these objects, but you know the address only of the first object and last object, and sometimes you do not even know the object of the last object, address of the last object, you just know the address of the first object. So this is the flexibility of linked list. All these objects are uh, at different places in the memory, but they are just connected with each other as they know the address next to the first address, address of the object that is the next object. Like this object knows the address of his next object, and this address knows the object of his next object. So this is linked list, and in next lecture, as these objects must have stored the address of the next object. So we have two data members normally for the objects of a linked list. These objects have a data member data where you store the data, and a pointer. This pointer is used to direct to the next address, next object. So this was a brief introduction about linked list, and in the next lecture we will do some programming to further elaborate the concept. So stay tuned.